Okay, so this first experience, it was actually a combination of the real side and the physical. It even started while I was working. I just got this view with my awareness. Now, before I get into that, I want to share a couple things that kind of brought me to this point. Of course, reading Duane's books and reading certain things about the mind and how, and I've had countless experiences about how, we are not the mind, and it's sort of just kind of like things that float above your head, or like things in your water. They just kind of float around there. And so I was having all these experiences, um, preparing me, sort of routining me, making me kind of adding that to my routine to get me to see that. And again, I had all this experience, but I still really didn't recognize how to be indifferent to the mind. It was difficult for me at times, and I didn't realize how much I related to it, coming through so many lifetimes and even my indoctrinated childhood. It was hard not to relate to it. And I didn't realize, again, how much that I was. Well, I saw this individual, I don't even remember their name, but they posted a video online, and they were talking about they were using old ideas of consciousness and certain things, but what they were talking about, I mean, the real meat behind it was they were referring to the mind and how people get caught up in the mind, but what they don't realize is, again, that we're not the mind, we're just the consciousness interacting with the preconditioned ideas that are floating around, that have been sort of. And for some reason, when he said that, even though I've heard it 100 times and I've told myself it probably a million times, 1,000 times over, constantly, it started to really make sense. And so I could see that, well, that's the reason I needed to see that video. And so it really started to make sense. And I started to look at it, and I had this dream vision, where I was standing in a giant crowd. Everything around me was all black. It was just all black, but I was standing amongst this crowd, and there was just all these people, and they were all dressed differently. They all looked like different people, and they were, talking about this and that, and, whatever. It was just kind of like that. And they were representations of all the different ideas that are there, whether in my consciousness or just in the world or in creation altogether. They were like people, they were like personalities. They took on their own awareness or kind of aliveness, because they just run away like that, I guess. But anyways, I was standing amongst them, and so I was kind of looking at them, and I remember I kind of just stepped back. I didn't physically or with my feet move back, but I kind of moved back and I got a bigger view, and I was kind of just looking at them all together, and I was able to really separate myself from all of it. And it translated into the physical, to where, again, I was working at the time where all of a sudden a thought form popped up. A thought form came across. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I was looking at it, and all of a sudden I got this pressure sensation, this squeezing sensation, as if somebody was taking their hands, or yeah, like taking their hands and was trying to squeeze my brain on both the left and right side. And when I was perceiving this sensation, it was like the agreement to the thought form. And I didn't realize, and again, now that I had this experience and I was starting to really see it, and how to be capable of being indifferent to the mind, I could see that all my life I had been dealing with this sensation and all, whatever, it's been going on. It's been a consistent thing, a constant thing. And it's only because of the agreement that I had to the thoughts that was sort of putting this pressure on my awareness. It was really boxing me in cage, like a cage. It was really wrapping itself around me. And I was never able to pick it up in that instant, or really, again, detach myself. And all of a sudden it made sense of how to do it, where I just used my awareness to look at it. I just looked at it. I didn't put myself in it. I like being in the crowd. I didn't put myself in it. I didn't react to it. I didn't grab at it. I didn't poke at it. I didn't do anything to it. I just let it show up, and I was the awareness. And it was this strong position of recognizing that I am the awareness, not the thought. And all of a sudden, all this pressure, all that squeezing sensation, all this stress, all this nonsense, just I became very light, very feather, very weightless. because I was in that awareness that I was not the mind, and that I didn't realize I was living under that kind of stress. Of course, you kind of get used to it. It's almost something like Stockholm syndrome, But that's what I wanted to share. That what really is cool about that, or interesting to me, is how many times I've heard it, how many times I've told myself that, well, I'm not the mind, and certain things like that, and doing that literal part to routine myself and really grind it into my awareness so I can come to this point. And even it's just a start, but it reminded me, like, when Paul, and we've gone over this a few times, when he was going over the Tiger's Fang experience, where he went through all the different levels with Rebazar, and he still didn't recognize the is, and he even asked, like, I think he said, I do not recognize myself, or something like that, or I don't recognize it, something like that. But the idea was that he had all this experience, but he didn't have the recognition. And so I noticed that's been a little bit of a theme. I mean, constantly that's a theme, constantly recognizing more and seeing more. So yeah, I just want to share that. And then I got a second one, but if Duane, you want to say something.
And yes, in the Tiger's Fang, there's that part where, yes, Paul is taking through all this experience, and Paul used to come and bother. Rebazar used to come and bother Paul at night, and I was there too. That's book 3, the Far Country, but nothing was said at that time. So I wrote all that when I came around. But yeah, there was, Paul explained his Tiger's Fang experience very well. And that was the start of something. But the reference was really Rebazar. And yes, when he went through that, kind of sat down and I saw this, I watched this, and because I was learning too, I was just watching the whole thing. And he said, I still haven't found myself, is what he said. And yeah, because it's not in the experience. People think it's in the experience. And, and as Paul went along and he wrote and he created things, he wrote about his experiences, he used old wisdom and created his new point of view with all that, and culminated things, because that's what it was at the time. It was really a babysitting position. It was the first start. It was grade school. And so he created Ekankara because it's like, okay, this is kind of far up, but this is what he'd come through too, with all the different teachers and masters and whatever. And he had to go through all that. So he could get viewpoints on that. And now if you read Paul's books or any of them, it's always the consciousness, always talks about consciousness, that people need to change their consciousness and whatever, but that's still not understood. See, the mind's just like a computer. It's the same thing. And unless there's something there, there's not. And so we kind of look at the caveman and he's just grunting around because, he's only considering every moment what he's going through, and he can't even relate to the fact that, like, where am I or what am I doing? He's just kind of moving through the motions, just like a fly buzzing around, just kind of moving through the motions and seeing what is next. So as we went through lifetimes, we've come to this point to where we have these languages and we have created the consciousness, just like programs in the computer. You build a computer, but there's nothing there. So you've got to create something to put in it. And that actually becomes the consciousness of the computer. And so what has happened is that people relate to consciousness as a reality, as them. And it's not. It's just your programming. It's what you've created to relate to with the mind, you see? That's really what it is. It has no life of its own, and just like you're seeing the thought forms and whatever. And, again, Paul related to the consciousness because this is the baby state that everybody was in, and it was easy, and this is what had always been related to this idea of consciousness and soul and God and all these things. So he just upgraded it a little bit and said, well, you are soul. But still, that is not recognition in itself. That's just replacing one idea with another. but it seemed to be an upgrade, you see, to many people. And so, and this is why the ECAs today don't recognize anything else, because they are actually, with their membership dues, they are actually paying for their babysitting, you see? So usually, you know, you get a babysitter and you pay them. Well, these people are paying for their babysitting. Yeah, they're paying Joni. It's like, here's our money, and just keep babysitting us, and we'll believe in the master and God and all these things. Fine. You know, that's a choice. They haven't gotten to the point where they want to decide to be the risk taker and see what's real, and that's your real awareness. And to recognize that, that's a whole lot. And so this is where people need to let go, because they're pushing, trying to figure this out. That's not the way to do it. You do and you don't, and that is, you actually let go. And Paul talked about it. That's when man loosens and lets go, okay? And that's the whole idea. And recognizing the difference. So, yeah, you still use the thoughts and whatever you see. You're just seeing it objectively, and it's fine. Doesn't matter. Just like you use your clothes, you use your tools, dishes, a washing machine, your car, you know, whatever, your house, your hair dryer, whatever. These are just things you use. But in the sense of the mind and the thoughts, most people don't, consider that to be so, as so much as, oh, gee, you know, I've got to change my thinking or my consciousness or whatever. Again, they keep relating to ideas and thinking that, oh, if I change my consciousness, I'll be better. Well, in a way, yes, you know, it's so. But you'll notice on the internet, when there's no spyware and everything attached, that, you know, you can have beautiful pictures, you can say beautiful things, or you can have raunchy pictures and pornography and all these things and disasters and whatever, and say really bad things, and it's all the same. You see, it's all the same. The only difference is the spyware and all that that's attached that interrupts your computer and even shuts it down and ruins it, etc. So without that, and that's of course, made by the same people that make the computer program, Microsoft and all that. They do both sides, because again, it's all about money. But again, that consciousness thing, and you'll see that, you know, these spiritual groups, they're always referring to consciousness, and that's where they do not see, because that's what they relate to. Consciousness is the personal self. So every attitude and idea, like and dislike, that's part of your consciousness. You create that. Okay, that's your creation. That's not your awareness. Your awareness is invisible, like the air you breathe. And how you consider it, or how you learn to see it, you have to learn to see it. It's an invisible seeing. I'm going to write a group on invisible seeing. And that's really what it is. So we have experiences. And this is good, because we need these to help the consciousness, to help the mind, help our mind store things that we have something to relate to, that more so relates to this invisible reality, instead of the consciousness just relating to itself with all these ideas. So people keep thinking that, oh, I get more knowledge and whatever. This is where people scramble for the 3G, 4G, 5G, thinking that, oh, I need more knowledge, I'll be better. No, you're just packing it, is all you do. It's like a car on a trip. How much stuff can you take, you know, until the car can't even move? So the thing is, people pack their consciousness, and that's not the idea. It's about the awareness to recognize that, but that's huge. So you want to give yourself the rest of your life. There's no hurry, okay? And again, life, like the sun shining. The sun shining is an example. That's it. That's as far as it goes. It's simply an example, because it's easy for us to eventually recognize what is our real awareness. And it's all about attitude and intent with this reality, because it recognizes it. And it's very, very important. So it doesn't matter if a person wants it. It's only so if this reality allows it. And this is what people don't see. They've been taught to beg to the gods, but realistically, the gods only give when they want to, not because someone begs them, you see? And the same with life. You have to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself worthy that you can have the awareness to see something real. And that's endless steps. So it's not what we think. It's not at all what we think. And that consciousness, yeah, it's a particular and it's needed, but in no way has it anything to do with the true reality. All I'm providing is the reference to the real guides and a reference to something else besides creation and the experiences and the consciousness that we have here. But all of it is needed as we go through the steps. But now you can relax and know that it's going to take me, well, really, there's no determination. It's best you just give that up. Because again, like the sun shining, there's no determination. But again, the spiritual paths have, told people, well, this is your last lifetime. So they have a time element involved, you see, and that's a barrier. That's a created restriction and barrier. You don't need anything. It's all about awareness. It's not about cute little ideas that, oh, all my karma's made up and the master will take care of me and whatever. Those are cute ideas, but that's just all babysitting stuff. It really is. And if you want it, have it. But that's not what we do. Okay, so as I manage the new presentation, this is what it is. And there's always upgrades to it, simpler, more direct, etc. Because it's all about your intent. And do you want to be a real person? Then you better have the intent to be a risk taker, be honorable, sincere, and step up and do something real and prove yourself. That's how it is. There's no babysitting here. That's how real it gets, and that's the best part. So, yeah, give yourself room. There's no time element. There's no more lifetimes. Just let it all go. So we've learned these things just like we've learned what we went through in grade school, but we don't carry that into high school. And we don't even carry high school into our life because all we learn to do is read, write, and some arithmetic, etc. The rest we can just basically toss out. It's just a bunch of junk. And so here we go. Go ahead, Jeremy. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for, see, when you talk, you prompt the experiences, so I get to talk too. So I'm going to talk about what relates to what we're doing right now, this new moment.